Hello, and welcome to the Orthodontic Products Podcast. I'm your host, Allison Warner. In this episode, we're going to talk about branding and the process that goes into it. And joining us to do that is Tony Peniche from the orthodontic consulting firm Peniche Associates. Tony is Director of Innovation there and works with orthodontic practices to help them not only build their brands, but also their larger marketing programs and to develop innovative ways to build on their success. Tony, thanks for joining me again.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm actually going to turn most of this conversation over to you. And for those who are watching the video version of this, Tony's going to share a PowerPoint that kind of walks us through that. But for our audio listeners, he's also going to just explain what's there, so you can still get the same value out of this whole process and everything. But he's going to walk you through the brand and design process for your orthodontic practice. And I think this will really be valuable because the process of working with a graphic designer and marketing agency can sometimes be really daunting. But you're here to walk them through what to expect and how to make sure they actually get everything they need from the process so that it's not contentious or hard or frustrating. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you talk to our listeners about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Okay.
And here we go. So this kind of came about because I've worked with a lot of orthodontics around the country, and when they hire an agency to redo their brand or design a graphic or update their logo, there's a lot of frustrations that happen. You know, basically like the first iteration that they get, they're disappointed with. And I have to remind them that, you know, the first round that you get, you're not going to like it. It's called a rough draft. And it might take 5, 6, 7, 10 different rounds before you actually get the logo or the design that you actually want. And you need to be okay with that and have that expectation. And it seems like it doesn't matter how many times I say that and explain that to clients, it's like they forget as soon as they see that first round of rough drafts. And then they say that, you know, the designer is terrible or that agency isn't what they expected. And I just want to remind you that it is a design process. So expect that. So
yeah,
here we go. The first question is, you know, do you need to refresh your logo? And I would say if you haven't updated your logo in 10 years, you probably need to refresh it. I would say 95% of logos out there after about 5 years, they start to look a little dated, and you need to just constantly be refreshing them. So what I always recommend is every 3 years that you have the evaluation and you talk about it with your team. And then every 5 years, definitely, you're probably going to want to refresh it just a little bit. I mean, even the Nike swoosh gets refreshed every few years. And a lot of people don't even realize that, but yes, the Nike swoosh even gets refreshed every few years. What I'm showing here is a video with terrible audio. Yeah, okay. Is a video of the Taco Bell commercial, or not, Taco Bell logo being updated, the Starbucks logo being updated. Now it's showing Pizza Hut. And you can see it's still on brand. It still looks like the same company. It's just refreshed. You know, they're updating the colors, the typeface. You know, your fonts are one of those things that really does look dated pretty quickly. But as you go through this process, remember that the first round that you receive, you may not like. So now what I'm showing is a bunch of examples of a logo for a company called Northern Lights. And you'll see just how dramatic and how different they are. And a client might see this first one and think, this is terrible. This looks like a sci-fi movie or a horror movie. This is not what I was going for. And that's fine. It's fine to say that and tell the designers you don't like that. They need that feedback. They cannot read your mind, right? And so you tell them what you don't like, and then you get another round, and then you tell them again what you don't like. But hopefully what you're telling them is what you do like. Maybe you start to see a little ember of something that is moving in the right direction. You say, okay, I like this element over here, and tell them to explore that element. And then as they continue to explore it, all of a sudden it becomes something totally different. So in this first series of logos, you know, there's like these like lines, and then all of a sudden they're playing with light and sun, and there's like chickens and trees. But by the time you get to the end, you're really just seeing a cup of coffee with lines coming out of it, almost like it's shining. And so you can kind of see how far it's evolved and went. But you have to communicate. You can't go silent and just sit there frustrated and kind of pissed off that that you don't like the logo, which is what we see all the time. Clients not communicating with the designers. Here's another one here where they took a photo of a lion and they changed it into one layer. And I could imagine a client immediately going, "This is awful. What are you thinking?" But not realizing that it's going to evolve. So the question isn't, do you like this logo? The question is, do you like this concept? Do you like the idea of a lion sitting and looking at him from the profile from the side? If you like that concept, then we can continue to go down this rabbit hole and see what we come up with.
Well, and I think that's the thing to point out, that it's about the initial design is the concept. Then it's figuring out what does that mean over the evolution, and that's where that input comes in, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, I mean, I tell clients this constantly over and over and over again. And then I still get that phone call and I still get that email that they're just so frustrated and they hate the designs that that designer came up with. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, is this the first round? I'm like, I told you, you're not going to like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I'd like to do now is actually draw something. So if you're at home listening to this audio, I recommend that you pause this for a second, go grab a piece of paper and a pen, and then hit play again. Everyone else, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, and we're going to draw something real quick.
Okay, I'm ready.
So Allison, are you going to play along?
Yeah, I'll play along. I'm ready.
All right. So Allison doesn't know what we're doing either.
Nope.
So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to, on your piece of paper, I want you to draw a very large circle in the center of the piece of paper.
Okay.
All right. Now, off to the left side of that circle, I want you to draw a slightly, maybe like half the size, draw a circle that overlaps the first circle off to the left side. So circle overlapping a circle.
Okay.
Now within that smaller circle, I want you to draw like a sideways oval towards the base of that second circle. So now you're just drawing an oval.
Okay.
Now above that little oval, I want you to draw two small circles right above it.
Okay.
All right. Now remember the second circle that we drew, the second biggest one? On the top of that, coming off of it, I want you to draw two triangles. Now looking at the largest circle and the first circle that you drew, hanging off the bottom of it, I want you to draw four little rectangles coming off the bottom of it. All right, and lastly, off to the right side of the largest circle, I want you to have like a little squiggly line kind of coming out the side of it off to the right.
Okay.
Now, did you get a pig?
Yes.
Does yours look like a pig?
I think it does.
So oftentimes, this is really what we see oftentimes is, does yours look like the bottom one over there?
My ears are a little too far in. They're not out to the side, but I would say yes-ish. Oh, my legs are all at the bottom of the big body. Yeah, mine are like your bottom big one there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do this all the time in our marketing course. And what I'm illustrating here is that, let's say we have like 100 people in the room and we do this exercise. What happens is about 20 to 30% of the people in the room nail it. And it looks like that bottom one there. It's like, okay, it's close enough. It looks like a pig. Mm-hmm. And then the other 70 to 80% of the room, it looks like that top one where it's like an abstract piece of art. It's just random triangles, random squares and circles that don't make any sense. And, it just looks like abstract art. And the point is that I just explained everything as detailed as possible, as simple as possible. Everyone heard the exact same thing, yet everybody interprets it a little bit different. And so sometimes you end up with the result that you wanted, but oftentimes you end up with these abstract interpretations of what was intended. And that happens with your communication as well. You think that you are communicating that you offer treatment for adults and treatment for children, or that your logo is crystal clear, that it communicates that we're from, this part of town, or, we represent this vibe or this brand, and people interpret it completely wrong, no matter how dummy proof you try to make it. I like using the example that Steve Jobs used. When he was releasing the iPod, he didn't talk about, it's got 500 megabytes of storage, it lasts 12 hours, it does all this, it has a touch screen. He didn't talk about any of that. What he said to market the iPod was, it's 1,000 songs in your pocket. It's so simple. It's 1,000 songs in your pocket. It's a concept that everyone can wrap their head around. You don't need to know the details. And so I'm encouraging all of you, when you're doing your logos or you're communicating or you have your taglines, it needs to be a lot more simple and thoroughly explained than you realize, because everyone's going to interpret it a little bit different. So don't just assume that everyone gets it.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point and a really good exercise to illustrate that.
Yeah. It's really fun with a big group too. So actually, if doctors, you're listening to this, I recommend that you get your staff together and play this little game. I can send you this photo if you want. Just make sure that nobody sees it in advance, and then do it with the team, and they'll start to get it that, you think you're communicating crystal clear, but you're not.
Yeah.
So the other question is, do you really need a brand deck? What I recommend that you do is you put everything on the table. So go to your office, grab every piece of paper, every envelope, business card, the gifts that you're giving at starts, or the gifts that you're giving at DVANs, or the start folder with all the other useful information. Put it all on the table, all next to each other, and look to see, are the colors matching? Are the logos matching? Are they the right proportions? How many fonts are we using here? We should only have 1 or 2 fonts. And what happens when I go into offices and we do this is, the visual I'm showing right now is Silver Lake Orthodontics. Now, they are incredible practice. They've cleaned this up. They are crushing it right now. But we did this exercise about 18 months after they opened. And after 18 months, they were already veering off course. You can see that there's about a dozen different shades of teal here because they weren't using a brand deck and they didn't have the color code. So they were just going, I don't know, teal. And then with the logo, you can see sometimes it's white, sometimes it's teal, sometimes it's black. There's no consistency there. And then when it came to fonts, when I was walking around the office, I think there was like over maybe like 15 different fonts that they were using. They were just kind of like winging it for different social media pieces or different marketing flyers. And so it was very clear that they needed a brand deck that explained every little detail of how to create assets for them. And I recommend that every office that you all do this, and really just kind of second guess yourself if you're doing it correctly. And obviously the whole point is you want to be recognizable the same way Starbucks is recognizable from 2 miles away. It's like you can't read that sign, but you can kind of see that green awning and that's a Starbucks, a mile down the road. And we want everyone to be able to recognize your brand as well, but it won't happen if you're not consistent. So a good example of a brand refresh here. So Urban Orthodontics, they're in New Jersey, and this is actually one of my earlier clients from about 5 years ago. And Leanne was explaining to me that, this office is really, really fun. They play hip hop music in the clinic. The doctors wear Yeezys. The staff is really diverse. The community is really diverse, and it's very fast paced. And just music is heavily influenced in this office. But then when I got there and I looked at their brand, it did not look like New Jersey. It did not look urban or diverse. It looked like it was from Middle America.
It looks
right?
Like
yeah. They're like urban. I'm like, what does urban and horse have to do together? Like, they don't relate. It really did look like the Indianapolis Colts, logo and branding. So it just didn't make sense. Basically the brand didn't match the vibe. If you only saw the brand and then you walked in there, it would be not what you expected at all. So we hired an agency called Humanity, but you can use any agency you want. And what we did is we immediately redid their colors. So you want to have your CMYK colors. And so you're not just going to say my color is blue and orange and gray. What you're going to say is it's blue and the Pantone color is this, the CMYK color is this, and the RGB color is this. And just to make it really simple, CMYK color codes, that is for anything with print or anything with ink that you can actually touch and feel. And then RGB color codes is for your computer screen, and they're totally different. If you've ever taken a photo, pulled it off the internet and printed it, you probably noticed that the skin tone on the person that you printed, the skin tone is like all like really orange or red or really wonky, and the colors don't match up. That's because you're trying to print something that's an RGB rather than trying to print something that's coded for ink on a printer. In this brand deck, you're also going to have your fonts. So oftentimes there's 2 different fonts. You can get away with 1 as long as there's a lot of variation to it, like different thicknesses and scale. but oftentimes brands will have two different fonts that play well together. Your texture layers. So if you're going to have texture layers to give your designs a little bit more movement, a little bit more rhythm, it's good to have those texture layers planned out. You want to have your brand values. So what do you stand for? What's important to you? As far as what we're communicating, what's that vibe that we want people to get? And then also, what's the voice? Do you want your office to come across as, progressive, intelligent, scientific, or do you want it to come across as like wholesome and authentic? Or maybe you want to be funny and you want to be, charismatic and witty with all your communications, kind of like Dollar Shave Club. You just have to decide that and then put that into the deck, so that way you can hand this off to someone else later.
Okay.
Finally, here you see.
Yeah, I was
Go
sorry. I
ahead.
was going to ask, with that brand voice and those values, is that something that the team should kind of sit and work on before they turn their kind of wish list over to the marketing agency and the designer?
Yeah, that's something so you're going to have a series of conference calls with the designer or with the agency, and they should be asking you those questions. And if they don't, make sure you bring it up then,
Okay.
because not all of them do it,
Okay.
but the more progressive ones like Humanity, Neon Canvas, Hip Creative, they all know what's up. They compete at this high level,
Okay.
and they'll walk you through that process.
Okay.
Land of Yog is another good one. Um, So what I'm showing now is sort of the after logo. You can see here that this logo really does feel like urban orthodontics. Within the logo, you can see the silhouette of a skyscraper, which really just screams urban. It has like a rough texture to it. Um, it feels more like what you would expect based on the experience.
Yeah.
And once you have the brand deck, and that's just a sample, by the way, there's a lot of other stuff that can go into it. But once you have the brand deck, then you can give that to anybody. You can give it to a designer in Europe or in Asia, and they can design flyers for you, or websites, or business cards, whatever you want it, wherever you want, and it'll look like your brand. Um, so here I'm showing, some business cards, some envelopes, and the letterhead, and you'll even see in the letterhead that texture layer in the background of the letterhead. It's really
Right.
subtle,
Yeah.
but it's important to have that on all of their brand elements, because they're urban and they're heavily inspired by music, and so they want to have that movement and rhythm to everything that they do. Then you can also create your social media templates. So if you're going to have a social media post that is design heavy, what do those design elements look like on those posts? And then your website. This is actually an example here where they gave that brand deck to a third party and built them. This is a pretty basic website, but they were able to design it perfectly on brand just by having that brand deck. And then here you can see the before and after, where basically went from Indianapolis Colts to urban orthodontics
Yeah.
that feels like premium but
Hmm.
urban orthodontics.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, like I was saying before, like the design process though, like that logo did not look like that on the first attempt, right? There was probably like a dozen different iterations of that logo before we got to this point. And so you need to have that expectation. Do not get mad at the designers. Do not get mad at the agencies, and do not call me after the first round complaining that it's not what you wanted. I
Yeah.
told you it's not going to be what you wanted. If you want to start playing around with it, though, and really test yourself, like, are you good at communicating? That's a real question. Are you good at communicating what you want? What you can do is download this app called Arvin, and it's an AI app. I think it was like $40 for the year, and it'll design logos for you. You tell it what type of logo that you want, and then you give it all the instructions and the descriptions of what you want. And let's see if you're good at communicating, because if the AI can't figure it out, then it's not really it. The issue may not be the designer or the AI. The issue might be your communication skills. Do you even know what you want? And if you don't know what you want, that's fine. You just need to communicate that with the designers as well, and they'll sort of help you navigate that, and they'll try a bunch of different things, and then you'll find a direction that you want to go down, and then you just go down that rabbit hole with them. Another thing with logos is I really recommend that you make them simple and intuitive to understand. What I'm showing now is an example from one of my buddies. So I consult for a lot of businesses outside of orthodontics as well. And one of my buddies is starting a vending machine business that's going to sell like premium gourmet meals, like ready-made meals in these vending machines. and he wants to call it Foodie Stash. And he kept trying to get too creative with the logo icon, where at first it looked like I think he said it was supposed to look like a vending machine, but to me it looks like a jukebox or something with a bite taken out of it and then a leaf growing off
A
of
leaf
it, and it
growing out of
makes
it,
no
yeah.
sense. You're like, what? That makes no sense.
I
And then the next one looks like Mario
Yeah,
like blocks or
boxes,
something.
yeah, exactly. And then the other one looks like a piece
Like,
of cake on its side with a bite taken out.
yeah, you're like, what is this? And
Mm-hmm.
and basically he's just trying to get too creative with it. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
someone needs to understand what it is from 100 yards away,
Mm-hmm.
and it should be intuitive. And so on the right side, you see the more intuitive one where, yeah, it's a basic, simple couple circles that implies a plate
Mm-hmm.
and then a silhouette of a fork within the logo for Foodie Stash. And you see that, you get it right away.
Right.
No questions.
It's kind of the argument that you
Um,
don't have to be literal all the time in terms of
yeah,
literally showing exactly what your product is in your logo.
yeah. You're like, it's a vending machine. And you're like, cool. Like, doesn't look like it, but cool. So I recommend that all of you really ask yourself, do you really understand your own brand? And does the community see the practice the same way you do? Just like earlier when I had you draw the pig, and I was communicating as clear as I possibly could, and yet the majority of people out there probably heard me completely wrong, even though I thought I was crystal clear. Ask yourself, does the community see the practice the same way you do? And then make sure you're crystal clear on what is the message or the vibe that you're trying to project out into the community. You got to question that.
Do you have any best
Uh,
practices? Do you have any best
no,
practices for practices best practices for practices in terms of, maybe getting a little focus group of patients or community members? Like, should they, I'm guessing staff isn't always the people to go to ask, like, what's your impression of us in the community?
yeah, I like that idea a lot, actually. Yeah, sometimes it's not good to ask the staff
Yeah, I wouldn't
because
imagine.
they're too close to
Yeah.
it, and their response when you ask them the questions, their responses are going to be what they think you want to hear,
Hmm. Yeah.
not the honest truth.
Yeah.
So if you have a couple of super fans, some parents or some patients that adore you
Hmm.
and have a great relationship with, maybe like have it on a questionnaire, either on a clipboard or on a Google form, and just let them fill it out and do not influence them at all.
Mm.
Just give them the raw questions. Don't explain why or how or anything. Just don't influence them. Let them answer it, and see what they come up with. Maybe do that with, you know, try to aim for 20. If you're doing it with patients, you have plenty to work with. So
Right.
try to aim for 20 pieces of feedback there. I like that idea. Good job, Allison.
Okay. Thanks.
Um, so the next bit is Fiverr. So most everyone has heard of Fiverr at least one time, and or they've already used it before. But it's usually used. It's People aren't using it the way they should be. There are graphic designers and video editors and photo editors all over the world, and they all go on Fiverr, or not all of them, but a lot of them go on Fiverr, and they'll put it out there where it's $5, $5 and beyond, and they'll design a flyer for you. They'll design a logo or a magazine cover. Um, when this company first started, it was about $5, and you can still find that, but oftentimes now they're a little bit closer to 15, $20 to hire them to do something. And what I recommend that you do is, rather than paying your staff member, like a lot of you have your TCs or your office managers designing your flyers and managing your social media, and you're paying them, let's say, $25 an hour or $28 an hour. And if they have to spend 2 or 3 hours on it and go back and forth and do rough drafts and show the doctor and get approval and all that, you're spending, you know, $75 to $100, maybe more, in salary for them, when you could actually just go onto Fiverr and pay someone a flat fee of $10 or
Mm.
$20, and they'll design it for you, and you get multiple iterations from them, because these people, this is all they do. This is their bread
Okay.
and butter. All day, every day, they just design, and so they're fast and efficient. What takes your staff member 2 to 3 hours to complete in total,
Hmm.
it's going to take these guys like 15 minutes, because it's easy for them.
Yeah.
And
And
so
you're
what I recommend that you do is, Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and you go to them with your brand assets. So you already have your
Correct.
fonts, your colors, your textures decided on, and now you're kind of at that next stage.
Absolutely. So what I'm recommending that everybody do is budget $200. It's a $200 investment. It's not much. Go on to Fiverr, pick 10 different designers that are all around $15 to $20 a piece, and give them all the exact same project. Do not change anything, otherwise you're gonna mess it up and you're not going to get the results that you want. So give 10 designers the same project. You're going to explain what you're wanting, the sizes, the dimensions. You're going to provide the colors, the fonts, the brand deck ideally, and all the words that have to go on the flyer, and give them all the same project. And then 2 days later, you pick your favorite, um, and then that's your designer now. So maybe you pick like two or three designers that you're like, man, these are all really good. Save their contact information, and then now I want you to think of them as these are your graphic designers. These
Ah,
are your employees. They just happen to work remotely, and you only pay them per project.
okay. That's a really great tip.
Yeah, and then you tell these designers, you say, hey, like this is not a one and done. I'm going to hire you a bunch in the future. So save these logos, save this brand deck, save these fonts for the next time I send you a project. So highly recommend everybody do that. It's going to make your life a whole lot easier. If you try to go to your web designers to have them do it, some of them offer those services,
Mm-hmm.
but oftentimes it's going to be a lot more expensive. I know Humanity, if you want them to do a flyer for you, it's really good, but it's going to cost $350. That's kind of
Right.
like their standard fee.
Okay.
Um, I'd rather just pay someone $20 and give them a brand deck, and it'll be close enough,
Mm-hmm.
or just as good.
Yeah.
All right, so the last couple things are more about tips to make your lives a little easier as you're designing stuff. So team photos, I really recommend that everybody start. Well, first, I recommend everybody stop doing group team photos where you get all your staff members together, you go outside, you stand in front of a bush or a tree or whatever that, or a brick wall like everybody does, and you take this group photo. And then literally 6 weeks later, somebody quits or retires, or you hire
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
new and you got to take the photos all over again. It's like, this doesn't make sense. The average employee of an orthodontic office in America is only with you for 18 months. Yes, some people are with you for 20 years
Mm-hmm.
and 30 years, and that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But some people are only with you for 2 weeks or,
Yeah.
6 months.
Yeah.
But it's a 18-month turnaround on average in America for orthodontic employees. And so what I recommend that you do, knowing that, is hire a really good studio photographer. It cannot be a natural light photographer. You
Okay.
have to find a studio photographer that knows how to use strobes. And what you want to ask them to do is you want them to do a composite team photo. And what they're going to do is they're going to shoot everybody on a white backdrop individually by themselves, and then they're going to Photoshop you together, and it's going to look like a group photo. And I promise you, if it's a good photographer, you won't know that everybody was photographed individually. It should look legit.
Ah, okay.
Uh, and you see this all the time with the NFL and sports teams. Like that's how everybody's always shot. You don't do group photos. It doesn't make any sense. Just as long as you're shooting it on a white backdrop that's blown out and the photographer knows what they're doing, you can composite them together and it's so much easier. And now when somebody quits, you just click delete in Photoshop and they're gone in 1 second. And then
Mm-hmm.
re-export the photo and there you go.
Yeah.
There's your updated group photo. You don't need to invite the photographer back out. And if you hire somebody new, you just send that one employee to that photographer studio by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They duplicate the style of photo, they Photoshop them in, and now you updated your group photo. It's so much easier, and everyone needs to be doing this.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this might be the best takeaway.
So everybody listening, again, it's called a composite team photo, and you need a studio photographer to be able to do this, not a natural light
Yeah.
photographer. Um, Okay, so the next cool tools, artificial intelligence. Everyone's always talking about this now. I'm a huge nerd, so I do deep dives into this and I love it. But it is overwhelming for a lot of people. And so to sort of calm everybody down and make it more digestible, there's two websites I want you to be familiar with. One of them is called futuretools.io, and the other one is futurepedia.io. And these are aggregators of all the AI apps that are out there and websites that are out there. And so you just go in here, type in the search bar, you say text to video, or you say um, photo enhancer or copywriter or whatever you want it to be, or no code apps. Like you can actually design your own apps now without needing to know any code. You just tell it what you want and it makes the app for you. And so anyways, these websites are going to make it a whole lot easier for you to like find everything that's on the market. It'll show you the reviews. You can preview them before you actually buy them. And it's just putting it all into one place, because I know we're very overwhelming right now.
Absolutely.
I'm going to show you two apps that I really like, and then we'll wrap it up. So the first one is called Rimini. So Rimini, I recommend that everybody download this right now. I don't care who you are, download it. Trust me, you're going to love it. It's a photo enhancer. So you can take these like low resolution, crappy photos that you uploaded on Facebook years ago that you don't have the original anymore. So the only version you have is that low resolution, crappy Facebook version. And you put it into Rimini and it enhances it and restores it. And it all of a sudden now it becomes high resolution. It's super detailed. And what I'm showing on the screen here is one of our team members, Pam. She sent me her updated headshot and wanted me to put it on the website, but the resolution was so terrible. So I ran it through Rimini, and now it looks like a professional, high-grade, beautiful headshot.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty remarkable what it can do.
Yeah. It just makes everything crisper.
And it's super detailed. And a good example here is I actually did a photo shoot years ago called the Burnside Hijacking, where I literally hijacked the Burnside Bridge in Portland, Oregon, where we forced the bridge to lift so that way a boat can go through. But the city wouldn't let me do it, so I ended up doing this technically illegally, and hiring my own yacht to like go down the river to force it to lift, to be able to pull off this photo shoot. It was really, really fun. But I ended up getting my hard drive stolen like a few months later. Like somebody came into my photography studio, stole my bag, and my bag had my computer in it, but also had my backup hard drives in it. And so I lost all the high resolution copies of these photos, and I was pretty devastated. And then it wasn't until literally just last year that I found out about Rimini, and I was able to restore these photos. As you can see here in this photo, I'm showing,
the blow
you
up.
can kind of see it's a cool shoot, but when you zoom in on it, it's just so degraded and you can't see any of the details. And then all of a sudden I was able to restore it. And now if you look at her eyes, look at her hair, look at her necklace, I mean, it's so detailed now. I have no idea how this artificial intelligence is figuring this out, but it's pretty remarkable.
No, absolutely.
You can also create new headshots. So if you don't like the headshot that you have for your office, you can upload some old photos of yourself, and then it'll create these new headshots for you. And they look legit. I mean, it's really hard to believe that these are fake.
Interesting.
I'm not going to lie. That's my buddy Phil. He's single, and I did that for him so he could use these for his dating apps. He would kill me if he found out. I'm telling you guys this right now.
If anyone's
I also did it to mom.
Contact, we'll supply it.
Yeah, you can also do some sci-fi stuff where it'll create headshots of you like in like sci-fi environments or, more abstract stuff. It's pretty funny.
It might be fun for like
and then
Halloween or some kind of holiday thing for an office.
Oh, totally.
To play around with that.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, that'd be really fun. All right, and the very last app I'm going to show you is called Caption. So I've been encouraging everybody to do videos, so especially like SOS videos, so that way you can have a YouTube channel with all your SOS videos on there, so that way patients don't have to come in for things that aren't really emergencies. You just send them that video, and now they'll know how to clip the wire or deal with a bracket that's loose. So here what you do is you can set up your ring light ideally, and then your iPhone, and then just read a script that is, to the right or to the left of the iPhone. And people don't like doing that because your eyes aren't at the camera. So, but now you can actually just go ahead and read the script, and then this app called Caption will actually move your eyeballs. It uses artificial intelligence to move your eyeballs and direct them at the camera. And it looks very natural. And now it looks like a much more professional video. So yeah, set up your script, put it right next to the phone, read it, and then use this app. And now you're looking directly at the camera. And it's pretty cool. It's a little creepy. I'm not going to lie.
It's a little wild, but I kind of intrigued.
Right? It's pretty fun.
Well, Tony, thank you so much. I really appreciate that you kind of not only went through what you need for your brand assets and how to create that, but then all these tools that are out there that you are readily available, whether it's hiring someone to do some of your collateral, or fixing things yourself. And honestly, that photographer tip, I think that is a big one, because I know personally, I constantly am on practices websites, and I'm like, I know that person left, or or I that's not the same amount of people in the bios as there are at the top. So definitely, I think that's a really great tip. But if
Yeah.
people have any questions or want to follow up with you, how should they get in contact?
Yeah, they can go to penicheteam.com and check us out. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook as well. And if you want to follow me on Instagram and all my crazy adventures and hear more about the survival games, I'm producing a TV show right now. That's a survival TV show.
Oh, wow.
You can find me at Peniche Tony on Instagram.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you again for being with us. It's always a
Yeah,
pleasure. All right.
my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Bye.
As always, thank you for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to the Orthodontic Products podcast to keep up with the latest episodes, and be sure to check out orthodonticproductsonline.com to keep up with the latest industry news. Until next time, take care.